Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to start a conversation that I heard through the People's Guild, which is at least my second favorite Splinterlands related content in this space. And so if you guys don't know about the People's Guild, check them out. They're amazing. Jangles, Hep, and Fat Jimmy's becoming a regular reoccurring voice on that channel. Love what you guys are covering. Love what you're talking about. And I was listening to the After Sound conversation you guys recently hosted, and there was this amazing piece that I had never thought about, or never maybe I had thought about but never really considered. And Jangles was saying that he had a conversation with Vetv or Vetev. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that, pal. About a new proposal around Soulbound Cards being immediately liquid for a very high cost. And that just immediately started stirring some ideas in my heart and my mind around, you know, what that would do for the economy, what that would do for the player base, the joy that might bring for, you know, those of us who are still enjoying the game. I think it's a great idea. I don't know if it got off the ground and then didn't go forward. I don't know if it died on the floor. I would love to see Jangles or the People's Guild drop a comment in this one and let me know, you know, if there's something I could do. Is it a fundraising? You didn't have the DEC. I love that idea, and I want to talk about the idea in this video. So you guys know, first of all, let's pull up the People's Guild. The episode in question, this is them here, the People's Guild, at the People's Guild SPL. Check them out. And 447 subscribers is a ludicrous number for this quality content. The weekly content, the long form conversations, amazing stuff. And this was the one, episode 106 with Aftersound. And maybe around the 45-minute mark, it looks like, they started talking about that. And I immediately stopped and I was like, I gotta talk about that myself, because I think it'd be an amazing idea. We have these Soulbound cards, and people have talked about the rewards being, you know, it's frustrating there's two sides to Soulbound reward cards, right? Soulbound reward cards, one, when you have them, are awesome. They set you apart. They allow you to win more. There's certain key legendaries that you guys know all too well, and you see very frequently. Iziar, Ava Surgis. What other ones do I really like? Drybone Raider. This is my secondary account, so I don't necessarily have everything. Yeah, Kulu Mastermind, definitely in that conversation. I really like Usep, but probably not in the same upper echelon tiers. But Drybone, Iziar, and Kulu Mastermind, in my opinion, are almost must-have, right? And so when you win them, when you get them, by playing the game, that's so cool. It's satisfying. It sets you apart, allows you to win more, get more SPS. Those are really great benefits. And I would argue that's the sort of incentive we want when we play a game. Meaning, if you play a game and you see rewards that are meaningful and allow you to move the needle in terms of how often you win and therefore how much you earn, those are the sort of rewards that should be really enticing to a player base. There's a big asterisk there, and we know it. The criticism around Soulbounds is that when you don't get them, you're so frustrated by losing to them. And so if you can't get Kulu Mastermind, if you can't get Iziar, and there's no way to buy it, that is so annoying, so frustrating, and you play the game for months and months and months, and maybe even years and years, and you go unable to capture those, and that is deeply frustrating. And so those are the two sides of the coin with respect to Soulbounds, and people say one of the ways to sort of counter that would be make them transferable, allow me the possibility of selling them. And one of the criticisms around that then is the fact that as Soulbound reward cards were originally immediately transferable, there was liquidations of them, and that was a pathway to exploitation. That's a word I want to use clearly, by, let's say, bot farms that were able to run multiple accounts and earn reward cards and then liquidate. And so I say exploitation in the sense that it was first and foremost an extraction process, not necessarily a long-term commitment to the ecosystem. And so those Soulbound rewards, which were like Genoshanis, which were initially transferable on release, are being acquired through play and immediately sold. That's causing downward pressure on the price point of that card, but not just that card, on other cards. Because if Genoshanis is ultimately a strong card and very affordable, if there's a different legendary that does something entirely different, but is far more expensive, there's less desirability to that. If you have two options, pathway 1, pathway 2, and pathway 2 is, let's say, Genoshanis, and pathway 1 is something entirely different, maybe a melee focused main tank, You might say, well, they're totally different. I want both. Yes, but people on a tight budget are going to say, Genoshanus is so much cheaper and it covers a lot of the bases that I want. Therefore, I'm going to lean into that reward card. And that takes away buying pressure from the other cards in the ecosystem. And so transferability, while this really desirable, maybe even ideal place for a trading card game, a collectible card game like Splinterlands, where you're rewarded for your time and attention, we see what happened when they were all transferable. And we see that extraction, or maybe even you might say exploitation, that happened. And so finding this balance between this pathway, that the proposal that apparently VetV and Jangles were kicking around was a substantial price point for these to be made transferable. So you've got one Ava Sturgis and it's not yet, it's Soulbound. And, you know, what would it cost on release for this thing to be immediately unlocked? And the secret sauce, because I've heard people say they should be always unlocked, and I've heard people say they should be always locked. And then there's less conversation around the middle where it's like maybe they start locked and then they later get unlocked. It's really, in my opinion, the true strongest camps are always locked and always unlocked. And I like this middle area because I find complicated problems often have nuanced and maybe even complicated solutions. And to me, a nuanced approach to Soulbounds would be, let's say Ava Sturgis had just come out and soon we will see a new reward set. And so pick one of those cards, imagine one of those cards on the screen here, and it gets released, and today you earned it, and it's the first day of its release, so it's going to be maybe the first of its kind in print. I love the idea that there would be a huge fee. I don't yet know what that number would be, and I want to spend a minute or two speculating on what sort of cost that could look like. But first, let's just articulate the idea. What if it could be immediately made transferable for a fee? And if the numbers were targeted in a logical fashion, I think that could be very desirable, because the player has the option to enjoy the card and set themselves apart against their opponents because they have this unique Soulbound card that others don't. But simultaneously, they can make a financial decision to, since liquidity is so low, it's a brand new card, they can make it transferable in that example and sell it to the marketplace, maybe for a very tremendously high fee. It's possible. And these are this is a conversation now around economics, because supply versus demand. If you had a brand new Soulbound card, like, you know, of this quality, I think this is a very strong card, and you had a brand new Soulbound card that was just released and there was 0 copies on the marketplace, you could imagine that a good quality legendary like that might command a large selling price. And for that reason, it might be worth it to endure or to put forward the cost to unlock such a card, even if it was tremendously high. And this was the special bit about their idea. At the beginning, it would be a tremendously high amount, and toward the end of its release, it would be a far lower, maybe even free amount. I don't know what that scale would look like, and I think the devil will be in the details on this stuff. But if you got that right, I think you're going to excite players, one, that want to receive rewards so they can keep playing the game. They just like collecting regardless of whether they can sell it. 2, for those who have this idea and desire to find financial liquidity from their earning, from their daily efforts. Because even though you'd have to put money in to unlock it so that it could be sold, you have to recognize that would be weighed against the low circulating supply, meaning you would command a high sell value. If it's a good card, and if there's a low supply, and there will be a high demand because it's a quote good card, and low demand or high demand and low supply equals high price. And so for those reasons, it seems so logical. And at the beginning of its release, there's never going to be a lower supply than the beginning of its release, meaning there should never be a higher, well, there will be a uniquely high price at its launch, and that price might theoretically slow down or drop off as more supply comes online. So I think you could, for instance, create an interesting burn dynamic. I don't know that this could be a path to revenue for the team, because the money for the burn could go to Splinterlands, the company, maybe. It could go to the DAO as a second option, and third, it could be burned. And to me, any of those options is interesting. I want Splinterlands, the company, Steam Monsters, the company, to have income. This could be a path to that. I want the DAO to have a path to income. This could be a path to that. Finally, I would be okay with them being burned, because burn is actually a benefit to the tokenomics of the game, and therefore a path to greater SPS price as well as DEC stability, which is so important for our tokenomics. So whether it was, you know, to the DAO, to the team are burnt, I think there's interesting ways to think that through. The question and the nuance and the challenge would be finding what is the starting burn value and where does that trail off. I think if these are being issued for a full year, and we've talked about having them issued, for less than that, 6 months, 9 months, I think is better. I think it would be best if our Soulbound reward cards were issued for a finite window, 6 months, 9 months, something like that. But right now they're like, it's a year and a half or something like that for these guys. And I go, if we had like that 9-month window that was super set in stone and we were going to see a new release, 9 months of a set, 3-month break, 9 months of a set, 3-month break. If that was the rotation we could really establish, I think you could introduce something where it's like, maybe it's $5 worth of DC that has to be burnt to unlock a legendary card. Maybe it's $2 for an epic. Maybe it's $1 for a rare. Maybe it's 10 cents for a common. And that then is almost a floor price because that's the cost to make it liquid. These are just rough numbers. I'm speculating off the top of my head. You'd really want to look at the theoretical number of copies that could be printed within a 9-month window. And then you'd want to sort of work backwards and figure if that's going to be the likely total supply, the purchase price at day one might be $10 for a legendary. It might be $20 for a legendary. It would depend a little bit on the thoughtful preparations of the fullness of the schedule. If we know it's going to be out for a year and a half, $5 for a legendary on day one might be too high. Again, the devil's in the details. It would be hard to think that stuff through, but I think Matt and the team could do this. And I think this could be a pathway, one, either to revenue for the team, revenue for the DAO, or a pathway to more stable tokenomics through burning these extra tokens, and ultimately a pathway for rewarding players in another way. Yes, you're still getting your cool cards that allow you to have fun and win more often. That's really key. That's one way the game is rewarding you with these reward cards. But then two, you'd have this option for immediate liquidity, this option for immediate, let's say, sale value. And imagine if it was a $5 ticket price for the first month and it's a 9-month window, maybe it's $4.50 in the second month. Maybe it's $4 even the third month, etc. You'd have this drop-off scale where it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until it's free to unlock. And those who unlocked it sooner would have that opportunity to sell in that early buying pressure, right? Because if there's an amazing card like Iziar, Avis Sturgis is an interesting card, but Iziar is an even better example. People still don't have this and they're frustrated. If you don't have that Martyr, you're worse off. If you have a max level card, this card's exceptional. So, in the first week of this thing being launched, you could imagine it being $5, $10, maybe even $20 to unlock it, and then it would be sold for more on the marketplace, and people would buy that. People would, I think, if buy a card like this on day one to set yourself apart for probably $15-20 a BCX, and that would be on the assumption that there's a 9-month window, not like a year and a half. Because the longer the window it's being issued, the more copies will ultimately be printed and lower future value it should have, because greater supply in the future should reduce the sale price per unit at that end date. I hope that all makes sense. And these are really just a lot of thoughts around what one pathway to, revising the Soulbound reward card. And it's not my idea. Like I said, People's Guild, Jangles, great idea, guys. I just had to jump in and give my 2 cents. And I really do hope that iterations on ideas like this can be put forward, can be tweaked. If there was challenge from the team saying, no, that can't happen, because it sounded like from the chat that they had with Aftersound, they brought that idea to Matt. And somehow they didn't really say what happened. So I'd love to see in the chat below, Jangles, People's Guild, let us know, like, is this going to happen still? Or do you have an idea? Is it an issue of funding? Did Matt say no? We'd love to know more, because personally, I think this would be an amazing pathway to helping the tokenomics and providing greater reward to the players for their time and attention in Splinterlands. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you enjoyed the video, drop that like. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and have an amazing day. God bless.